At my brother's wedding, she exposed a shocking truth. What happened next transformed everything. The air buzzed with laughter, bodies twirling to lively music, and the scent of freesia filled the quaint banquet hall in our small Indiana town. My brother was moments away from saying I do, and I was set to support the happiest day of his life. But with each flutter of my dress, I felt the weight of my own life crush down harder. My job at the local law firm felt suffocating, unfulfilling. I often felt unseen, like a shadow in a world that preferred brightness. My thoughts drifted to the unvarnished truth. Was I living for my family, or was I losing who I was in the process? As the maid of honor rose to give her toast, mischief danced in her eyes, her wine-glazed lips curving into a daring smile. To family, and to our shared father, who has another family in Greenfield. Spilled words shattered the joyous bubble. Laughter morphed into gasps. I watched as my brother's face drained of color. A chill circled my spine. In that moment, I felt foundations trembling. Loyalty to him surged, wrestling with an insatiable urge to unearth a past I never knew existed. The chaotic aftermath clouded over our once celebratory air. I could practically hear the whispers swooping through the crowd, each one like a dagger to an already jagged wound. Shame, betrayal, things I had never known came rushing at me, overwhelming as I struggled just to breathe. I stared blankly across the room, feeling the pulsating weight of family loyalty throb against a burgeoning responsibility to confront our father's hidden past. Why hadn't I known? What kind of world had I been living in? After the wedding's chaos, home felt eerily quiet. I rummaged through those old boxes, sifting through forgotten family photos that now felt deceptive, echoing false memories of happiness. Each image was a reminder of a lie I was unearthing, the absence in my father's eyes now blaring. My mind raced, my breath became irregular. The tenderness I had felt toward my childhood morphed into disgust as I grappled with a reality I wished remained hidden. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. The tension enveloped me like a thick fog. I felt propelled towards the truth, yet fear clawed at my insides. What if digging deeper only widened the rift? Each document, each finding made it sting. Our shared legacy was nothing but a threadbare tapestry, barely holding together. A burden I didn't want to bear crept closer each day, igniting a determination to fight for justice against silent complicity. And yet, I hesitated. The walls felt like they were closing in around me as I confronted my father's choices. Caught in this relentless spiral, part of me wanted to scream at the injustices that had birthed this family shame, while another part feared where the journey would lead. I yearned for accountability, but was terrified that exposing family secrets could gouge the already fragile fabric of who we were. I felt both sick and invigorated by the chaos brewing inside me, wondering if unraveling these truths could liberate me or forever imprison us all. The intensity of my struggle mounted with each step toward this transformation. Would I stand tall in the light of truth, or retreat into the shadows of complacency? The days draped in a heavy blanket of disillusionment. Each morning, I woke to the gnawing anxiety of what loomed on the horizon, the need to confront my father tightening its grip around my chest. Life moved on around me, but I felt stuck in an unending cycle of memories woven with deception. The law firm kept me busy, but each case felt like a distraction from the storm brewing within. As my colleagues debated intricate legal matters, I sat silently, pondering the more significant riddle of my family's existence. Amidst the hushed conversations, it struck me. My purpose as an attorney had always been to champion the truth. Why then was I allowing fear to paralyze my own pursuit of it? Every time I pushed the thought of confronting my father to the back of my mind, it produced a shuddering effect, resonating deeper than the solemnity of the law. I felt estranged from the very essence of who I was. One evening, while cleaning up after dinner, I stumbled upon an old letter tucked away in the back of a drawer. The hastily written script belonged to my mother, an expression of her anguish over my father's errant ways. The words transformed from ink into the piercing sound of her heart breaking. The letter, wrapped in emotion, felt like the spark I needed. If my mother had endured this lie, shouldn't I demand the same from my father? The morning sun hit my face the next day with an invigorating warmth, juxtaposing the turmoil swirling inside. I had made my decision. I would talk to him. I needed answers, not just for my brother's sake, but for my peace. My thoughts drifted to the moment of truth. Would he deny or elaborate? I envisioned every scenario, and yet none prepared me for the confrontation I was about to orchestrate. When I arrived at his house, tension pulsed through my veins, each footstep heavier than the last. My father appeared through the door, sporting a weary smile that felt disingenuous. Before I even settled into small talk, I plunged right in. "Dad, we need to discuss the family you've kept hidden." His expression faltered, a flicker of vulnerability breaking through his confident facade. I had struck a nerve, and suddenly it felt like the world had shrunk down to just the two of us standing there. He paused, seeming to gauge how much he could afford to reveal, and then invited me in to talk. As we sat across from one another, a suffocating silence enveloped us. Each second felt like a pendulum swinging between confrontation and the calming desire to rewind time. As he began to speak, his voice steadied, revealing pieces of his disjointed tale. My heart raced, tangled in a web of emotions, rage, disappointment, and an unexpected surge of empathy. "I was a different man then," he stammered, his voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't want you to suffer the consequences of my mistakes." His confession hung in the air, a glimmer of redemption intertwined with my growing resolve. Pieces of my father's hidden life began to fit together, yet the transformation within me was just beginning. It struck me, a sense of responsibility ignited by the ugliness of truth was the foundation of my professional ethos. Ideally, I would engineer hope amidst despair, using my skills to guide those vilified by shadows to the light of their worth. Yet deep within, a conflict brewed. How would I navigate the chasm of familial betrayal against the obligation I felt to expose it? My heart raced as the walls of our relationship rattled. This was not just about accountability anymore. It was about reclaiming my narrative and ultimately my identity. As the weight of decisions loomed larger, part of me began to wonder, could confronting my father finally liberate me from this emotional prison, or would it leave scars that could never heal? The moment demanded clarity, but one thing was sure. I was no longer willing to hide behind someone else's narrative. The time had come to face the repercussions of the truth. The air felt electric, charged with uncertainty as I left my father's home. The weight of the conversation pressed down on me like a dense fog, each step away from him reverberating with the truth we had just unearthed. I had gone in anticipating a confrontation, but what I had received was a mix of guilt, remorse, and a heartache I scarcely expected. The gravity of our exchange made my resolve crystallize. I would not let fear dictate my path anymore. As I returned to the law firm, the same hum of activity surrounded me, but now it struck me as surreal. My colleagues debated cases with vigor, but each argument felt hollow in the face of my recent revelations. Questions spiraled in my mind. Would the truth of my family's past now guide my professional life? Was truth the beacon I could forge into a sword for those burdened by their own shadows? I settled at my desk, recentering myself amidst piles of briefs and case files. Confronting the depths of my anguish had fueled a fire within me, pulling me from the grip of complacency. The truth I engaged with in my father's home was not just personal, it was professional, a foundation upon which I could build a renewed commitment to my clients, allowing vulnerability to transform into a strength that I could wield in the courtroom. My day unfolded with sporadic legal tasks, but my mind wandered back to the confrontation more than once. I had revealed not just a wound, but a path to recovery that was intricately tied to my professional responsibilities. I envisioned representing clients with the wisdom forged from my familial encounters. Perhaps their pain could ignite the empathetic approach I needed, changing the way I navigated the often callous legal system. In an effort to clarify my thoughts, I took to driving around the neighborhood instead of heading home. The quiet moments allowed for introspection as I wrestled with how to frame my newfound clarity into actionable strategies. I needed not only the motivation, but plans, real steps to translate insight into a form of advocacy for others. How could I stand for truth without letting the personal turmoil transform my voice into mere noise? It was in the midst of this contemplation that I received a phone call from my brother. His upcoming wedding loomed ever closer on the horizon, a joyous occasion layered with unspoken tensions. He was excited, but I sensed an edge to his tone. "I need you to help with the toast," he said, the request almost laden with expectation. It struck me as a mirror to my internal conflict. Was I prepared to stand before our family, knowing the truth I carried? As I pulled into the driveway of my home, a renewed determination filled me. The toast would be an opportunity, a moment to embody both support for my brother and my own authenticity. It was the perfect stage to begin unraveling the complexities of our shared history within our family narrative. Did I have the strength to delicately weave my truth into the celebration without overshadowing his moment? The thought festered and bubbled as I prepared. Could this become a defining moment of clarity in not just my personal life, but my professional ethos as well? A part of me yearned to shout the truth aloud, to cleanse the fabric of their shared lives of hidden burdens. Yet an inner voice urged caution, reminding me of the deeper ramifications this would hold, both for me and for everyone involved. As I sat down to draft my speech, a sinking realization hit. The stakes were higher than I anticipated. The truth was no longer simply a personal journey. It was woven into the larger family narrative, capable of transforming everything from that moment on. Where would my commitment to truth lead me amid the joyous occasion? The clock ticked mercilessly as a new revelation unfolded in my mind. My brother's wedding was no ordinary event. It would be the crucible where silence would either be shattered or preserved. Could I truly be ready for this? I whispered to myself as the echoes of familial loyalty wrestled with the desires for honesty. The moment had come to decide, silence or truth, fear or liberation. The following days would test the very essence of who I had become, leading me to a crossroads unlike any I had faced. What lay ahead promised to be a pivotal blend of love, betrayal, and revelation, where standing for my beliefs might redefine our family forever. The week leading up to my brother's wedding unfolded with a thin veneer of excitement that belied the tension brewing within me. Each morning I faced the mirror, grappling with my reflection. Could I truly embody the role of a supportive sibling while carrying the weight of our family's hidden truths? The wedding wasn't merely a celebration, it transformed into a potentially volatile convergence of emotions and revelations. As the days wore on, I found solace in the law firm. The cases I usually embraced with fatigue now seemed like an extension of my own quest for truth. I tackled legal briefs with renewed vigor, absorbing every detail as if the intricacies of law were guiding me through my personal labyrinth. I began to see parallels between my legal battles and my familial situation. Both required a careful balance of strategy, empathy, and an unwavering commitment to honesty. During a late afternoon meeting, a junior associate mistakenly cited a case law from memory. The error caused a ripple of laughter, Yet instead of joining, I felt a twinge of annoyance. I realized the difference between honest mistakes and the kind of trauma that festers in silence. My commitment to truth was crystallizing, yet it pointed me to a deeper understanding of what it meant to support others. Before I knew it, the day of the wedding had arrived, vibrant with the colors of celebration, but enveloped in the gravity of unspoken truths. I put on my suit, the fabric heavy against my skin. As I stepped into the venue, I could hear laughter echoing beneath the grand archways, a stark contrast to the storm surging within me. I moved through the crowd, exchanging pleasantries while steeling myself for my toast. Each conversation felt like a carefully enacted stage performance, where I hid behind an elaborate mask. My brother spotted me as I lingered near the drinks table. He approached with a grin, but I saw the slightest flicker of concern in his eyes. "You okay?" he asked, gauging my stillness. I nodded, but inside a tempest raged. I wanted to ask him if he ever felt the weight of all we were omitting, the words that hung unspoken like a cloud ready to burst. But instead, we shared a moment of brotherly camaraderie, oblivious to the undercurrents. When it became clear that the time for my toast had arrived, dread enveloped me. The spotlight hung above me like a guillotine. I could feel the intensity of the room sharpen, gathering attention like a predator sensing vulnerability. As I stood up, I glanced back at my brother. There was pride in his eyes, bolstered by innocence. And that's when it struck me. Suddenly, the choice crystallized with clarity. This was not just my moment, it was ours. I had to speak, but not in a way that would shatter our fragile family facade. Instead, I would strive for authenticity. This was about weaving in the truth without derailing a celebration of love. I searched for water in the sea of expectations, ready to transform what could be a rupture into healing. With my heart racing, I began. The words poured out, tentative yet deliberate, as I spoke of family, of our shared past with all its complications. Today is not just about union, it's about understanding where we come from. With each phrase, I felt the walls inside of me shift, moving closer to the threshold of vulnerability. But just as I was ready to mention our family's ghosts, the unthinkable happened. A voice, sharp and unmistakable, interrupted from the back of the room. It was one of our relatives, a figure from the past, who had been all but forgotten. "You don't have to do this, not here." The commotion it stirred startled everyone into silence, forcing me to confront everything I had been preparing to say. The room was thick with tension, and all eyes turned toward me, expectant and anxious. In this moment of chaos, I questioned if I had the courage to embrace my truth amidst the maelstrom of judgment and familial fear. The stakes were suddenly higher, and the line between loyalty and honesty blurred in the palpable air. Would I hold my ground, or would I retreat into silence once again? The path ahead now lay strewn with the rubble of my past, waiting for me to either dance through the debris or be buried by it. The weight of expectation pressed down on me as I stood frozen, the spotlight strangling every instinct to flee. My heart clawed against my ribcage, urging me to abandon the dignified silence I had honed for years. The unsettling voice from the back continued to echo in my mind, amplifying the fears I had fought so hard to keep hidden. "Not here." The relative's words reverberated like an alarm bell, breaking my fragile resolve. What kind of truth threatens not just a family, but the very essence of who we are? In that moment, I became acutely aware of the vulnerability in the air, the unguarded glances exchanged, the hidden stories chronicled within the faces staring back at me. Perhaps it was time to shatter the barrier that had so doggedly defined our familial interactions. Taking a deep breath, I anchored myself in the memory of my brother, the joy radiating from him mere moments ago. This day was not just his, it was a sanctification of love. Yet beneath it festered our scars. I realized I had a choice, not merely to broadcast my truth, but to invite others into our shared history, a beseeching call for honesty among ourselves. Family isn't just blood, it's the stories we carry, I began again, my voice steadying. Today, as we celebrate love, I am reminded that love also means facing the truths we wish to avoid. Every word felt increasingly cathartic, and I could see the surprise flit across my brother's expression. He was still grappling with his own peace. Was I forcing him into a conflict he hadn't prepared for? Doubt gnawed at me, but I pressed on. I wanted to uplift him, not burden him. Yet I felt the urgency of our unspoken histories waiting to unfold. As I continued, the eyes in the room shifted from skeptical to curious, perhaps even compassionate. Our family is not perfect. We have wounds that run deep, I laid bare. In the spirit of this joyous occasion, I urge all of us to honor not just the love we celebrate today, but the parts of ourselves that we might still be afraid to embrace. Then I risked the truth that had lingered on the edge of my tongue like the sharpness of lemon. As much as today is about unity, it's imperative we acknowledge that family ties can be both a comfort and shackles. We are bound not only by love, but by our histories, some of which have been hurtful, and some we are too proud to recognize. We cannot move forward without letting these truths breathe. The relative who dared to interrupt shifted restlessly, their expression morphing into a mixture of indignation and something resonant, fear perhaps. They spoke for many, I realized. The fear of facing the past often suffocated our potential for growth. A befuddled silence enveloped us as I made eye contact with my brother once more. I needed to gauge his reaction, to discern if I had crossed an irrevocable line. Instead of anger or horror, I discovered a tentative understanding blooming in his eyes. He was listening, perhaps even stepping into the fissures I had uncovered. The tide had turned, and I could feel the collective breath of the audience, reflective, contemplative. Yet their faces were still edged with the remnants of disagreement. The battle for acceptance had only just begun. As I sensed the momentum building, I too felt the stirring of courage within myself. I contemplated plunging deeper into our family's complexities, knowing that acceptance cannot thrive without uncomfortable revelations. But just then, another voice rang out again from the back, this time with a deeper timbre, filled with authority. "That's enough. If you're going to air dirty laundry, do it somewhere else." Confronted with this new interruption, I caught the glances of others, shock mingled with contemplation, and wondered if I had truly lost them or begun to resonate. The line had been drawn, yet I stood on the verge of revelation, committed now to forging a path forward. My heart raced. I was grappling with something larger than myself, and I couldn't draw back now. What would it take for my family to understand the transformative power of honesty? And how would I navigate the escalating conflict that promised to erupt? In the wake of that tumultuous exchange, silence gripped the room, pregnant with tension. The authority in that interjection reverberated through the space, creating a palpable divide. Verbal conflict hung in the air, a reminder of the complexities lurking beneath familial smiles. I had expected some pushback, of course, but now, as I stood firmly at the precipice of confrontation, I felt a flicker of anxiety worm through my resolve. What choice did I have, though? Wasn't this exactly what I had spent years avoiding, comfortable in the denial that our history was less than perfect? It wasn't enough to merely acknowledge the fractures. I needed to confront them head-on, to unearth the truths that had shaped us, however uncomfortable they might be. My gaze shifted towards my brother, still standing at the end of the aisle, a bemused look etched on his face. He looked poised to intervene, but hesitated, caught between loyalty to our family structure and the undeniable truths I had just vocalized. What did he need from me right now? Certainly not another conflict, yet I felt an overwhelming urge to sustain this momentum. "I believe," I began again, this time more softly, yet with renewed conviction, "that there is strength in vulnerability. Today, we celebrate love, but isn't love rooted in the acceptance of our full selves, including our flaws and uncertainties?" The question wasn't just directed at my family, but aimed at myself, too. As I spoke, layers of fear began to peel away, exposing a clearer vision of my own desires. I was tired of living in a facade, tired of being the observer in my own life. If this moment sparked even the slightest shift in perception, it was worth the risk. The relative who had shouted out remained rigid, a titan of traditionalism unwilling to bend, but others in the crowd shifted slightly, some nodding, as if certain elements of my heartfelt plea resonated with their own internal struggles. I could sense the tentative stirrings of questions among them, those grappling with their own narratives too. You see, I pressed on, emboldened, driven by a mix of adrenaline and fear. Our family is embroiled in a cycle that we can challenge, one that forces us to hide rather than heal. Let's embrace these discussions rather than run from them, if not for ourselves, then for future generations. A ripple of murmurs permeated the room, a complex interplay of uncertainty, acceptance, and reluctance to engage with the truths unfolding. The rigid faces before me bore silent witness to this moment, each one a reflection of the burden they carried. Youthful faces turned eager as they absorbed my words. Hesitant smiles emerged. Perhaps this sparked something within them, a glimmer of hope that honesty could indeed forge lasting bonds. As we stood suspended in this moment, time seemed to pause, and clarity washed over me. This was not merely about my family's past. It was about my own liberation. But as I contemplated the possibility of a breakthrough, my eyes once again sought my brother's. What if I had opened a wound he wasn't ready to bear? The flicker of recognition I had seen in him did little to quell my concern. The uncertainty of how our conversation might affect his happiness gnawed at me. And then, seizing the moment, I ventured deeper into my truth. If we fail to confront our individual and shared experiences, we risk repeating mistakes. I choose to move towards healing, not just for me, but for all of us. I think we owe it to each other. At that moment, a woman stepped forward, eager yet apprehensive, braiding our family's tangled history in her bravely spoken words. "But what if this isn't just about you?" she challenged softly. "What if unearthing these truths means risking more than just feelings? What if it fractures us more profoundly?" Her challenge pierced through the swell of emotion, bringing me face to face with the inevitable conflict. Now, as I held the floor amid an escalating situation, I felt a stirring determination rising within. This moment could redefine us or tear us apart, and I stood resolute not to flee. Yet the audible tension whispered of a truth yet unknown, waiting on the edge of resolution. What revelation lay in store, ready to either unite us or further fracture the fragile bonds of our family? The air remained thick in that charged room, saturated with an inevitable confrontation. I could feel the weight of every gaze fixed upon me, mixed with expectations and fears. My heartbeat thrummed loudly in my ears, a rhythm of anxiety that accompanied my every thought. As I faced the woman who had spoken up, I found clarity in her question. What if this was more than just a family revelation? What if we were on the brink of unraveling deep-seated wounds that had, too long, been congested by silence? I cleared my throat, hoping to anchor myself. "You're right," I said, my voice steadying as conviction surged through me. "But what if this discomfort is necessary? Isn't growth synonymous with unease? We need to face this if we want transparency and strength." I noticed how her expression softened as she processed my words, perhaps a spark of empathy igniting within her. From behind me, murmured discussions grew. Whispers fanned out, igniting differing perspectives among relatives. I scanned the room, noting my brother's body language. He remained still, caught in a complex play between curiosity and trepidation. I could sense the internal battle raging within him. What if he wasn't on board with this venture into our truths? The potential fracture flickered in my mind. Yet, instinctively, I moved forward, unwilling to let fear dictate the narrative. "Look," I continued, addressing the from the back echoed my own fears, igniting a torrent of anxious thoughts. What if the very truths we unearthed ripped us apart instead of drawing us closer? The collective energy in the room shifted, a cool breeze dousing the warmth of our initial discussions. My heart sank. Was I stepping into an abyss rather than finding my footing on solid ground? I refocused on my brother's face. He was once my anchor. We had navigated childhood storms together, weathering the constant turbulence within our family. But now, we faced unforgiving winds of revelation. I needed him to see this moment as an opportunity, just as I did, but doubt shone through his expression. How could I ensure he felt safe amidst a tempest brewing in our family dynamics? "Everyone, I hear your concerns," I said, my voice softening, smoothing the edges of my earlier urgency. "Uncertainty is valid, but isn't it better to confront what looms in the dark than to let it fester unseen?" I watched the room carefully, gauging reactions. I understood now that deconstruction also meant empathy, acknowledging fears. Slowly, I began to weave a path through the tension. We are fragile, yes, but we are also resilient. What if sharing our truths not only opens wounds, but also brings healing and understanding? I pointed to my mother, who sat across the room, her eyes brimming with unshed tears. "Mom, for years, your silence spoke volumes. It shaped my perception of love and trust. Maybe there's room for clarity now." Just then, her chin dropped as she absorbed my call. In a surreal moment, I felt my spine align. I was doing something transformative. I chose openness, rarity in our family context, which had been defined by avoidance. Let this moment be a birth of vulnerability for us all. Sometimes we have to dismantle to rebuild. It might feel like we are tearing each other apart, but the truths we reveal could serve as the bricks for a stronger foundation. Before I finished, I realized my brother was shifting nervously in his seat. This was a chance for us to redefine our connection, to affirm the bond that had always been our shield. If I could draw him into this dance of honesty, perhaps we could weather any storm. "John," I called gently, using our childhood nickname. "What does this make you feel? I'd really like to hear you." His gaze lifted, catching mine with a flicker of recognition. "Yeah, well, it's not that simple," he replied awkwardly, the words tumbling out before he could reel them back. "I've buried so much, it feels overwhelming, like opening a floodgate that should have remained locked." There it was, the vulnerability I hoped to draw out of him. "I understand, but let's not let the fear of water drown us. We can build a life raft together." The room stirred with a mixture of anticipation and hesitation as John continued to deliberate. "I'm scared things will get worse and will end up fighting about what's past, or worse, what lies behind your words. Then let's face that fear. What if we use this chance to confront what we've avoided?" I found myself whispering urgently. "Okay," he replied, albeit reluctantly, "but if it goes sideways, I'm holding you accountable." A breeze of laughter rippled through the room, cutting through the stifling tension that had enveloped us. There was a flicker in his eyes that spoke of pent-up emotion bubbling to the surface. As we balanced on the precipice of honesty, I could sense that together we had ignited a powerful shift, one that seemed to ripple through, not just us, but the entire room. The air vibrated with the tension of possibilities, the fear of disconnection battling the hope of unity. What if this was the beginning we all needed? What other hidden truths awaited us that could reshape our understanding of family? I took a deep breath, ready to dive headfirst into the territory that had long remained untouched. But as the first voice echoed again, I knew we were far from done. What awaited us next could either tear us apart or finally connect us more deeply than we ever imagined. Could we truly bear the weight of those truths and emerge intact? The room fell silent, tension wrapping around us like a cold shroud. I could feel every pair of eyes weighing on me, anticipating the breach of silence that had held us captive. It became clear that we stood at the threshold of revelation. My heart raced, each thrum propelling me forward, urging me to bridge the gap between fear and acceptance. "Okay, John," I prompted gently, seeking to guide him back into this fragile space we'd created. "What do you think? Can we give voice to the things we've kept silent for so long?" His brow furrowed, and he shifted in his seat, fighting the battle within. I understood that asking him to open up was akin to requesting him to strip bare the protective layers he had built over the years. I don't want to hurt anyone," he finally murmured, vulnerability threading through his words. The honesty of the moment crackled with intensity. "You won't," I assured him, though my own words trembled with uncertainty. "This is our family. We've all been hurt long enough by things left unsaid." I sensed the relief and tension intermingle as he nodded slowly. "I know I've been distant, but it's easier to walk away than confront everything. I guess I just didn't want to relive the chaos." The gravity of his admission pressed down upon me. It amplified my resolve. It was time for us to dismantle the walls we had hidden behind. "Then let's address that chaos together," I proposed, feeling the tide shift in our favor. I turned toward our mother, who sat poised at the edge of her chair, tears still glistening in her eyes. "Mom, you've held onto your pain for so long. It's our turn to hear your truth." All eyes turned to her, a collective breath held in anticipation. When she finally whispered, "I felt so alone in this," I recognized the enormity of our family's shared neglect. And then, like a fragile branch cracking underfoot, the dam began to break. It started with timid voices echoing inside the room, storytelling our histories, each revealing fragments of hurt. Reluctant confessions bled into one another, forming a tapestry of sorrow, hope, and reconnection. With each unveiled truth, I felt my own weight lift, replaced by a burgeoning sense of clarity. My mother reminisced about a time when laughter filled our home, and soon we shared memories we'd locked away, regret and yearning etched across our faces. John grappled with his own misgivings, laying bare the reasons behind his distance. The discomfort morphed into empathy, knitting us together as we voiced what we had all felt but feared to express. In this exchange, I caught glimpses of strength I didn't know existed in us. It was a slow unveiling, revealing powerful revelations about our capacities for love, forgiveness, and resilience. Yet, among the confessions, lingering shadows loomed. I suddenly felt the urgency pulsing through our small gathering, the understanding that while we had set one truth free, there were so many more waiting in the wings. As the conversation deepened, something within me stirred, a realization that the fear of vulnerability had always been my cage. What if I could also articulate my own narrative, the one I had kept hidden under layers of responsibility and expectation? "Can I share something?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. The air became electric, charged with anticipation. "Absolutely," John replied, his expression a mix of apprehension and curiosity. "I've always felt like the responsible one, the glue holding us together," I began, each word unfolding a piece of my internal struggle. But I pushed down my own feelings for fear of burdening anyone. I've only ever wanted to be understood. Silence engulfed us again, heavy yet nurturing. I wondered how they would respond, how my revelation would cascade through the remnants of our gathered memories. But before I could finish, a knock echoed from the doorway, sending a jolt through the room. My heart raced as I turned to see a figure lingering in the threshold, face obscured, a shadow from the past resurfacing. What could this revelation possibly mean for our fragile moment? Would it shatter the connection we had just forged, or would it provide the final piece we needed to build something new? The figure in the doorway took a step forward, revealing himself as my estranged uncle, the one who had lived beyond our secret family veil. His presence cut through the heaviness in the air like a sharp knife, bringing mixed reactions from everyone. Silence reigned as we awaited his next move. "Can I come in?" His voice trembled, carrying the weight of regret and longing. At that moment, memories blurred with uncertainty. He was a reminder of the familial rift we had tried to bridge, yet unspoken tension hung between his entrance and our gathering's essence. "We're in the middle of something," I replied, trying to steel my resolve. My heart raced, torn between the necessity of every voice and the fear of new chaos unraveling what we had begun. "I know," he said softly, guilt lacing his words. "But I need to speak too. I've come to confront my part in all this." I glanced at my brother and mother, each of them processing the moment differently. Finally nodding, I motioned for him to step inside, my heart thundering with anticipation. As he settled in, I felt the dynamic shift once more. "We have buried so much pain in this family," he began, drawing the attention of every relative present. "I am to blame for some of it. I did things that hurt everyone and kept them hidden." The room hummed with the electricity of a weighted truth. I watched as faces reflected the turmoil. Recognition mingled with anger, fear, and a flicker of hope. My uncle's admission seemed to reverberate through the very fabric of our shared experiences. "I left after that fight with your father," he continued, his voice steadying. "I couldn't face the wreckage. I severed ties, thinking it would make things better. But I see now, it only added to the silence." His words were a catalyst. The walls I had worked so hard to dismantle urged me forward. "And how do you feel about that now?" I asked, feeling the momentum build. Regret washed over his expression. "I wish I could go back and change my decision. Every missed moment haunted me after. I have my own hidden burdens I wish to share, truths that tie back into your father's mistakes and intertwine with this family's legacy." The tension shifted once again. Encouraging murmurs arose among our relatives as the possibility of healing seemed tangible. It was conflicting. I could feel my own fears, but also the urge to push through the discomfort for the sake of everyone gathered. "Please, continue," I urged, surprising even myself with the authority in my voice. "I walked away, but I never stopped thinking about how my absence affected all of you," he disclosed, vulnerability etching deeper lines on his face. "You deserve to have a voice in our narratives, to know the real stories. If there's any part of this family that deserves healing, it starts by embracing the confinements we created ourselves." There it was, the confession rippling through the crowd, magnifying the wounds and hopes intertwined. An unsteady voice from the back called out, "But can honesty really heal what's been fractured? What do we do with the sorrow our truths unleash?" "Honesty does not erase pain," I asserted, "but it can find footing amidst it. We can't carry shadows if we're sincere with one another. Not anymore." We turned the focus back to my uncle, who was nodding in agreement. "I wasn't there for your father's choices, but I could have offered support. We all played a part." He made eye contact with me, and something unspoken passed between us, a mutual understanding of the narratives woven into both of our lives. As stories unfolded with renewed fervor, a framework of honesty began to replace our collective hesitancy. My mother spoke next, detailing moments when fear bound her silence. My brother followed suit, and to my astonishment, they began to unravel the roots of their pain. In their willingness to expose vulnerabilities, it became evident that unfolding their truths was not meant to dismantle our family, but to fortify it. We each bared parts of ourselves, the full spectrum of our human experience, sorrow and joy molding together, illuminating how our lives had intertwined. The moments of sharing solidified a bond amongst us, like stitching patches into a quilt. Somewhere amidst the stories, I felt an illumination of my identity take shape, a clarity in the weight I had carried far too long. As my uncle spoke about fragmented recollections from our parents' lives, I finally recognized my own struggle mirrored in their entangled histories. "Every piece of our past defines who we are today," I asserted. "As we reveal our truths, we're not tearing each other apart. We're constructing a legacy, a new foundation to erect from the shards of broken memories." A steely silence echoed, carrying the gravity of my words. The guests present seemed to breathe deeper, absorbing the cauldron of emotions swirling in our midst. The burdens that had shackled us began to resonate less heavily. Those hidden truths now revitalized our connections. And amidst this collective catharsis, the realization settled within me. I was no longer the silent observer of my story, but a participant authoring a new chapter, built on raw honesty. As laughter threaded its way through the emotional landscape, I understood I had conquered my greatest fear. Beneath the veil of pain lay the roots of healing. In that swirling milieu of family and penned truths, I felt my own narrative come alive. It mattered that I had unmasked my vulnerabilities and embraced the unpredictable nature of honesty. I felt powerful command over the tumultuous road ahead, a journey toward understanding, acceptance, and love. Each breath carried a steadfast resolve to define my role as a family member, a confidant, and an advocate for truth. The moment glistened with potential, a vivid tapestry of unacknowledged love alongside our histories, woven together into a fabric stronger than I could have ever imagined. The future, it seemed, offered us a horizon of rebirth and connection. The wedding was not just a celebration, it was a rebirth, a chance to weave our narrative anew, and I felt invigorated beneath its warmth. No longer would I teeter along the precipice of sorrow. Together we had triumphed, unveiling the beauty of unconditional love amid the storms we endured. In the wake of our revelations, it dawned upon me, it was not the scars that defined us, but
our courage to invite light into our darkness. I took a deep breath, poised in anticipation of the journey ahead. The best is yet to come, I uttered softly, a promise not just to myself, but to each family member surrounding me, illuminating our path as we stepped forward into the dawn of a new day. Now, don't let this moment slip away. You need to subscribe now to the channel to continue following these exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like to support this journey and keep uplifting our community. Comment below your thoughts and theories about our family's transformation. We want to hear from you. Share this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this breathtaking journey of truth and reconciliation. Don't wait even one more second. Let's ignite a movement of personal growth together.